And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of RBLR Sports, specifically the RBLR Rowdies section. My name is Leo Santos, and I'm always joined by my amazing co-host, James. James, if you're out there, man, how are you doing? How was this weekend, bro?
I am here. I am not away. I am at the microphone tonight to talk about some awesome things from this past weekend. One less than awesome thing, but it didn't happen to me. I was not at the Rowdies game out in California, so I did not witness that. I just had, a nice weekend to myself. What about you, Leo? How was your weekend? How are you feeling right now?
Similar just to you, man. I had a weekend to myself, just relax, kick back. And right now I'm feeling great, man. We have an action-packed show today. We have the Open Cup to talk about. We have this past game to talk about. We have some new signings to talk about, James. But before we get into all that, let's remind the listeners to follow at RBLR Sports on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at RBLR Sports. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast on all major podcast platforms. Wherever you listen to your music or podcast, will for sure be there. Now, with all that being said, James, we had, as you alluded to, a game late Saturday night against the Oakland Roots. However, James, this kind of game, it was, something that you and I certainly did not expect. We were texting each other while the game was going on, and, we were hoping we would text each other about other things, hopefully some great news about the game. But instead, the Rowdies tied to the Oakland Roots 0-0. And as Neil Collins said, they probably didn't deserve to tie. If you ask me, James, I'm pretty sure you would agree. I think the Rowdies should have lost that game as well.
Yeah, I was originally supposed to be in bed when this game started because I had stuff to do on Sunday. As I told you while we were watching it, I drank too much coffee on Saturday and I ended up staying up late to catch the game. Now, catching the game was probably not something that I really needed to do that night. It's not like it was anything good to watch live, but one thing that I did get from the post-game press conference with Neil Collins, he was none too happy either. So it's not like, it's not like we saw something different from anybody else, I guess. And his assessment straight from the horse's mouth was we probably did not deserve to win this game. So I can't put it any better than that, honestly.
Yeah, and what makes the situation more unhappy for us, at least, James, is that neither of us got our predictions right. You predicted a 3-0 win. I predicted a 3-1 win. And as you can tell, the Rowdies did not win. However, I can still be a little bit happy because I am overall leading the prediction race so far this season. I have 6 points above your 5 point change. But before we talk more about the game, let's just quickly put out those transfers that were announced this afternoon. So the Rowdies signed 2 youth players to academy contracts. Tate Johnson and Santi Castaneda have signed and are eligible for the first team immediately. Johnson comes from Tampa Bay United and Castaneda comes from Florida Premier. And James, if I say so myself, I think this is long overdue. I feel like the Tampa area has really great youth soccer academies. I feel like, it's been long overdue to give these people a chance to shine with the Rowdies, at least give them an opportunity to play with the Rowdies. Because growing up, playing for these youth, I didn't play for TBU or for the Premier specifically, but I did play for West Florida Flames, and there was a lot of talent on my team and other teams as well. I'm just really happy that the Rowdies are giving these players a chance, not only to just sign contracts, but also have a chance to play with the first team. That's really, really great to hear.
Yeah, I am super excited, like you, just the same about, these academy signings. I think that it's awesome when teams in America specifically will sign players directly from their academy. That's, that's actually how the rest of the world just does it. They don't need, these special contracts or anything. That's just what happens when they get to the age and the skill set, obviously, to make the first team. But when we are also replicating that, not only in MLS, because there are, roughly 10 years of that going on in MLS now, but we're getting into that in MLS Next Pro, I suppose, but also down at the USL Championship level. I think that really bodes well for how good our academy system is, and it bodes well for the American youth soccer setup overall. I did play for the previous equivalent of Tampa Bay United. It was back then called Hillsborough County United, but we did not have any affiliation with any pro teams, and I was not, one of the players who would have been called up to that. But there were definitely players on that club who, went on to play a couple professional games here and there. There was a Puerto Rican international player that, probably could have done well with the Rowdies. There were a couple of guys on his team, and Darnell King, I believe, also came through Hillsborough County United, for anybody who remembers him from his time at the Rowdies and now watching Phoenix Rising. There's, just as you said, so much talent in this area, and the fact that there is a path for them to grow through their teenage years, actually continue to, play against guys who are going to raise their own level because they're adult men, and then, possibly make it onto the first team. It's so exciting to me. And I think that it is super cool for the area. Unfortunately, though, there is one bad thing to note. The Tampa Bay Rowdies did not sign legend Joe Cole back to the first team like they said on Friday. That did appear to be an April Fool's joke, unfortunately enough for us. He might have been pretty good as a super sub, but unfortunately, we do not get to see how that would play out.
Yeah, he would have been a great super sub in those last 3 minutes each game, right? I'm pretty sure that's what he has left in the tank these days. And just going back to your point about how exciting it should be for the Rowdies to give these young players a chance. We look at what happened with Juan Tejada and where he's at now. He was a local boy signed to the Rowdies, and now he's a fan favorite. I feel like people who don't really know the Rowdies know at least the player Juan Tejada on the team. So I feel like it just helps the community overall, giving these young and very talented players a chance with the Rowdies. So with all that being said, James, would you be so kind to give us a quick review of our game on Saturday night against Oakland Roots?
Absolutely. So I will go through a quick review, as you said, and then we will jump into the analysis and questions segment to follow that. But where do we start every game? Obviously, we want to start with the starting 11. And that started with CJ Cochran, Aaron Guillen, Connor Antley, and Jordan Scarlett in front of him, Leo Fernandez, Lawrence White, Lewis Hilton, and Sebastian Dalgard in front of them, and Jake LaCava, Sebastian Guanzotti, and Jan Ekra in front of them. Now, they did not exactly line up like that, and we will get into that more in the analysis section. But the first half, obviously, that is the way that we get into this game, is a pretty poor first half. It was a bit of a disaster. Former Rowdies player Juan Guerra, who is now coaching Oakland Roots, it seemed like he might have just out-coached us on that crazy, weird candy cane of a turf pitch. I'm not entirely sure, maybe they were going for the Rowdies hoops with that, and the Rowdies just did not oblige. But
and you would think that
anyway,
would help us, right?
Yeah, I might have ahead of time, but yeah, it did not, unfortunately. And just a quick note of how poorly things went in this half. I wanted to tell everybody what the crosses were for this first half, and it was 5 out of 10 crosses for Oakland Roots. So they obviously had 50%. And if I looked at the crosses for the Rowdies, it was 0 out of, and then I did not see how many, because they did not complete any of those crosses. It was 0% completed, which means I was not able to find out how many crosses we actually put in. So obviously those are bad numbers. If we get into the second half, we started off with a substitution, and then a couple more came quickly after that. So Neil Collins was trying to switch things up pretty immediately, and that at least did help settle the Rowdies down a bit, not entirely, as the commentators, including Devin Kerr, our beloved Devin Kerr, did note during the game. There were a lot of giveaways in the second half, and maybe that was due to the game being so dark. I don't know what you have to say about that, Leo, but it seemed like there were either not floodlights or that they weren't working properly for the broadcast to actually see what was going on. But yeah, it was a very weird game from start to finish. And Neil's interview after the game was very telling, and we've already mentioned that a little bit, but we will talk about it even more as we move on.
Yeah, definitely. And let's move on. Talk about this analysis, and let me ask you some questions. I guess we could just start out with James. What happened with our lineup that allowed Oakland to have such success, and what just happened with the Rowdies' performance? Because I feel like if we were to play either the Pittsburgh Riverhounds or Phoenix Rising, let's say this weekend, right? The lineup that we fielded against Oakland Roots is a very similar lineup, if not the exact lineup that we would field against either of those two teams that I just named. So I feel like you can't blame it on rotation. You can't blame it on your starting lineup. So then what is it? What went wrong for this game if you had your strongest lineup out on the field Saturday night?
Yeah, so there were a couple of things that I noticed with both the way that it changed over the course of the first half, but then into the second half. And I also talked to Neil Collins about this. So Leo, tell me if you disagree with any of these takes that I've got here. But the way that I saw the Rowdies lining up in the first, let's say the first half of the first half, I don't have exact minutes here, but it looks like Lewis Hilton was sitting in front of the back three like he always does. Then you had your wingbacks, obviously Leo and Sub D. They were the two who were going up or trying to go up and down the wings. I guess they didn't really have a lot of success, as I already noted. In front of Lewis Hilton, though, were Lawrence Wyke and Jan Ecker kind of sitting as two. And then in front of them were another two, Jake LaCava and Sebastian Dalgard. And they were almost set up in a box in front of Lewis Hilton. And then, that did not cover all of the outlets that Oakland Roots had themselves when they had possession of the ball. So when Oakland started with the ball at the back, they would have three back there. It was not the lineup that I saw them play in the game against Monterey Bay. So obviously that game did not go too well for them. They switched it up and they changed a couple of things around to see if they could get some success. They almost did against the Rowdies, but they had themselves set up this time with three at the back, two in front of them, and then moving forward, the rest of the team would interchange a lot. Actually, there was a lot of positional switching around going on up top for them. So at the back, they had Danny Barbier, who was, kind of the left center back, and he would take the ball all the way out to the line and then try and play it up that line. In the middle was Tarek Morad, a player that Rowdies fans will also be familiar with. He's been in the league, obviously, for many, many years at this point. And then the right fullback, right center back combination was Alejandro Fuenmayor, and he would take the ball when he got it all the way out to that right side on the line and try and play it up there. A lot of plays that I noticed, Juan Azócar, the left wingback, I guess he would be, he was, staying back a little bit deeper as opposed to going all the way up the wing and trying to get to the goal line to get a cross in or anything like that. But Edgardo Rito, the right wing back for Oakland, he definitely was going all the way towards the end line, cutting it back in and trying to get crosses in. And they had a lot of success doing that. He beat Leo Fernandez dead on for pace at one point during the game and really did not make things look good. There were a couple of other things here that I wanted to hit on before I got to what Neil Collins said about the game. And it was just a couple of bits about their midfield play. So when Oakland had the ball and they started, let's say the ball with the keeper or Tarek Morad in the center of the field, they would play it out wide, like I said, to Barbier or Fuenmayor, and then they would try and move the ball up. Their midfielders, Matias Visore and Jose Hernandez, had brilliant games for the Oakland Roots. They did absolutely amazing jobs in the middle of the field trying to move the ball forward. And they helped create overloads whenever the fullbacks were able to push the ball forward up to players like Rito or Azócar. Then they always had Visore and Mfeka on the left, or they had Hernandez and usually Carlson, or I'm sorry, not Carlson, but Charlie Dennis on the right side. So they always had three players attacking with the ball at any time. And, that led to them getting chance after chance. And I have several times here that, the Rowdies nearly gave up a goal. And in addition to that, there was the big problem with the Rowdies giving the ball away frequently. The Rowdies are obviously known for doing a lot of pressing, and we get a lot of success off of that, including Jake LaCava's goal last week against Hartford. But we were the ones being pressed against in this past game, and it was Oakland who was creating a lot of chances off of those. So I asked Neil Collins about that, and I will go through that briefly before I hand it over to you, Leo. I've been talking forever here, so let me go through Neil's quote. He, like I said, he immediately called it a bad performance, and he said that he had maybe got a couple things wrong with the lineup. I wanted to know exactly what those were as far as he saw it. And as much as Neil likes to keep his cards close to his chest, he did say that they struggled to get any pressure on the ball in areas that they like to get pressure on the ball, meaning when Danny Barbier, Tarek Morad, or Alejandro Fuenmayor had it, we just sat back because of the way that we had our players up top in that box that I had mentioned earlier. And he said that there were obviously a lot of elementary mistakes, like too many giveaways, which is stuff that the Rowdies are not known for. And, I agree with all of that. There's probably a bit more to it, but I think that definitely he had us lined up in a way that did not maximize our ability to press them when they had the ball.
Yeah, I mean, everything you just said, I agree with. You talk about the bad giveaways. Usually when this stuff kind of happens to Rowdies defenders, we usually see it where, like, there'll be one game where Jordan Scarlett gets bad at giveaways, and 2 weeks later there'll be one game where Aaron Guillen makes bad giveaways. But this game, it was all of them. The whole back line giving, bad giveaways. You see CJ Cochran giving the ball away, didn't really complete most of his passes. Aaron Guillen, who's very reliable for this team, just giving the ball away. You can say the same for Connor Antley, who I thought Connor Antley sometimes was too confident at times. He would beat one defender, then he would try to take it up more and more and more. Then he would lose the ball. Then obviously you have that center of the back three spot vacant, and that's where where Oakland would try to counter the Rowdies on. And Jordan Scarlett, giving the ball away, and Lewis Hilton too. Someone who I don't really see too much often giving the ball away. It didn't really seem like him to just try to switch the play, try to create something. But however, he just made the wrong pass almost every single pass he tried to attempt. So it didn't look like the Rowdies were ready themselves this past game. And you could blame it on whether it's the lighting in the field. Because James, you and I talked about how during the broadcast we could even see the fans because the lighting was just, at least for the field, wasn't really all that great. However, I think that's just a lazy of excuse to use if you are a Rowdies fan, or if you're Neil or someone who's just trying to find an excuse for how the Rowdies didn't perform too well. And then you talk about going forward. James, I tell you many times, sometimes this season, but mainly last season, where we talk about how the Rowdies, the way they like to play is switch the field side to side, crosses in the box. And you already mentioned that they already had 0 crosses after this game. And that's just really, really hard to believe, because you look at the likes of Leo Fernandez and Sebastian Dalgard, who love taking on players 1v1, love putting in crosses. However, that opportunity was taken away from them this game because of the way Oakland did perform. And I think we're talking about, how poorly the Rowdies are playing. But James, you really mentioned how good Oakland, approaches the game, and they deserve a lot of credit. I really feel like if it wasn't for CJ Cochran, who we'll get into more shortly, I feel like if it wasn't for our goalkeeper, Oakland can comfortably walk away with a 3-4-0 win.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that the way that we switched it up in the later parts of the first half and then moving into the second half, that did help things. As I said, that did not really, affect the game overall, because we were still liable for all of these crazy giveaways that you just mentioned. The only player that I really saw who was, kind of an outlet for the Rowdies, because, we would hoof the ball forward sometimes and we would try and find Leo Fernandez or Sebastian Dalgard on the wings, and they would often lose it. Sebastian Guenzati and Jake LaCava were not really all that good at holding up the ball and kind of, giving our defensive unit some release from all of the pressure that they've been under. But the one person that I saw who could actually hold on to it was Jan Ekra, making these solo runs. And I saw at least 6 times in the first half that he was able to relieve pressure by taking the ball, beating 1 or 2 players on his own. And sometimes he would win a free kick. Sometimes he would actually just beat 4 or 5 guys, actually. But yeah, he was the only one who really led to any substantial, break and play for Oakland Roots coming at us. And when we switched it up, it was more of what we had seen last year, where Wyke and Hilton were kind of starting next to each other, and then Wyke would, push forward a lot more frequently. And then Jake LaCava was over on the left wing so that he could apply pressure to their fullback Foy Mayor. Sebastian Guenzati was more in the middle so that he could apply pressure to Tarek Murad. And then Jan Ekra was over on the right wing so that he could apply that same pressure to their left back, Danny Barbier. And that kind of even things out a bit. I did like at least that, we had more of that shape where it was like more of a 2 and 3 as opposed to the box in front of Lewis Hilton previously with, 2 and 2. And that did not work out at all. So when we switched it up, we could at least get a little bit more pressure, which is what Neil Collins mentioned in the post-game press conference. But overall, as we've said, it just really didn't work out. And, he didn't say necessarily that the conditions on the fields were a detriment to the Rowdies, because he hadn't talked to them about that, I guess, when, we talked on the post game. But he did say that they had a 6-hour flight. Maybe that had something to do with it. As you said, I think that that's possibly, small potatoes compared to what every team has to go through,
Yeah. I want to ask you, James, usually when we see top teams not really perform at their 100% and are the second best team on the field, they do find a way to win, not only get a point, but to get all 3 points. We've seen Rowdies, who are obviously a top team in this league, against Oakland Roots, who are still trying to figure out their way into the season. At least haven't picked up a win yet. Should we be a little concerned that, or something to consider, that because the Rowdies are a top team and we didn't play well, we still couldn't get all 3 points? Do you think that's something that we could see more of this season, or do you think it's just the kind of games where it just didn't go well for the Rowdies?
I wouldn't necessarily look at this game as one of those principles where good teams find a way to get results even when they're not playing well. I think that honestly, this game was, especially for the Rowdies, pretty lucky that we got out of there with a point, and that comes hugely down to CJ Cochran, not even, other defenders blocking shots off the line or anything like that. There were plenty of block shots, of course, but it was mostly down to CJ Cochran making these gigantic saves at the last moment in one case very early on. But yeah, I would not necessarily look to apply that principle here. I think that Neil Collins described this as a performance separate from most others that he's seen. And, we're just going to have to take that as it is and kind of see if they can move on from it to that old, that goldfish memory.
Yeah, CJ Cochran's proven to be a game changer already with the Rowdies, and he's only been here for a month or two. But James, let's talk about other game changers. You talked about Jake LaCava, Seba Gonzalez, Leo Fernandez, and Lawrence White. These are players who are game changers for the Rowdies. These are players who you can rely on. However, we talked about how the Rowdies weren't playing well, but something had to turn up right. Something, at least some kind of player will create some kind of magic at any minute. And I feel like that could come from LaCava, Seba, Leo Fernandez, Dos Santos, or Lawrence White. However, they were subbed out in this game. Is that because is it possible Neil and the Rowdies had one eye on the Open Cup game, which we'll get more into later? You think that's a possible reason why they did sub them out, or is it just because they weren't performing well? Let's see what the people on the bench could provide for the last 30 or 35 minutes or so.
Well, if I'm being honest, then I'll, get your opinion on this as well here, but I don't think that necessarily they were subbed out to provide them, give them any extra oomph, I guess, when they come up against the Villages on Tuesday. I think that actually they will probably be, rested to start that game. And, this is all speculation. Do want to throw that out there. But I imagine that the people who have started so far will not start this game against the Villages, and they will come in later into the game if they are needed, because we haven't tied up the loose ends or what have you against the Villages, assuming that we are winning, like I am currently assuming. But I think that honestly, it just comes down to how poorly the game was going.
Yeah, definitely. Another player I want to mention, he's someone that we signed in the preseason. There was so much hype around this one player. Fans on Twitter were saying, this is such a key addition to the team. That man is Jake Arman. And James, he hasn't started the game yet, and he wasn't even substituted in this game. Why is that?
Yeah, I'm not too sure what to say about this one, in all honesty. So just to provide the listeners or anyone who didn't catch the game with the substitutions in this area, Dayon Harris eventually came on for Leo Fernandez, and Sebastian Dalgard moved to the left wing back spot so Dayon Harris could take over at right wing back. And as you said, Jake Ehrman did not come into the game. They made a couple of other substitutions really quickly. Tejada came on for Jake LaCava, Etu came on for Ekra, and Kyle Grigg came on for Seba. This was after the halftime substitution where Steven Dos Santos came on for Lawrence White, who was on a yellow card. But yeah, why isn't Jake Arman in this game? I'm not entirely sure if there's something that maybe Neil Collins just hasn't seen that his fit is appropriate yet, or if there is a problem with fitness or anything like that. I don't assume so, because he's on the bench. He is an option, obviously. But I can't really explain this one. He can play in a central midfield role, and maybe it is the case that Neil Collins prefers Junior Etu and his ability not only to shut things down, but maybe take the ball a couple steps forward, because we do notice that when Etu's out there. Araman can also play as the left wing back, and instead of that, he moves Sebastian Dalgard over there to that spot. Now, Sebastian Dalgard has been one of the top performers so far this season, so do you take him off when you bring somebody on like Dayon Harris, or do you leave him on and bring Jake Arman? Do you leave Sebastian Dalgard on and bring Jake Arman on the left side? I'm not entirely sure what he's thinking there, but it's it doesn't appear yet to include Jake Arman. I'm really hoping that he gets the start against the Villages on Tuesday, and then we can, see him go and make a name for himself, so to speak.
Yeah. This might be a tough question to answer for you, James, but also for myself. But if you're Jake Arman, I know it was preseason, but he started those games performing really, really well in those games as well. Obviously, he's behind Leo Fernandez and left wing back spot, and possibly Jake LaCoppe on that left wing spot. But if you're Jake Arman, what do you think you're telling yourself? Because you came into this team not ready to ride the bench. Hopefully, start in this Rowdy side. So, what are you really thinking? To yourself with 4 games into the season already, and you haven't made a start yet.
Yeah, what are you thinking? I don't know. Having not been in that position, of course, but what I would say for Jake Arman, if I can guess as to what Neil Collins is going to say, everyone is supposed to be ready to go at any given time, because especially if you're on the bench, because it might well be the case that you are the person that he decides to put in, or there's going to be another injury. There can always be 2 injuries at any time, even if you're like the 3rd person on the depth chart, maybe. So there are, options that you could always play. I think that he will get more game time, and he will certainly get starts. It just depends on where and at what time. I think Leo Fernandez, for the most part, has, held his own, and maybe there's some instances where pushing Leo Fernandez would be more helpful. So that's where he would slide into that spot. In the midfield, there are a lot of options too, like we had already mentioned. But, it's just waiting for your chance. And then also, when you get your chance, you have to make sure that you take it with both hands. And like I said, that's what I'm hoping for with Jake Arman. He might have seen this past game and said, I can play better than that at least.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I guess the name of the game right now is just patience for Jake Arman. So with that being said, James, we're going to move on to our man of the match for this game. And for me, it's got to be CJ Cochran, making saves left and right, keeping the Rowdies in the game. And James, I'm pretty sure you could agree with me on this. We don't even need Evan Laurel no more. You could say goodbye. CJ Cochran's here. And, I'm very much comfortable with him in the net.
Oh, yeah. CJ Cochran is my man of the match. There's only one answer, and it is definitely him. I think that, he was somebody that was singled out by Neil Collins after the game as well for his performance. Now, his passing was, as you mentioned, off at times. That goes along with the rest of the Rowdies backline, so, no real need to focus on it. What really happened for CJ Cochran was him making literally an on-the-line save at one point, making point-blank saves in 2 other instances that I can think of off the top of my head. The only reason that we got a point out of this game, it had nothing to do with anybody else on the field. It was all CJ Cochran.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. We're in agreement once again, James. Another week, another agreement in our man of the match. It's got to be a game where we disagree. But you know what? I'm comfortable with your choice because it was my choice as well. Now I feel like I'm always correct. But with all that being said, we'll move on to our hot take segment. James, my man, I'll let you go first, and I'll say my hot take, and I'll get us into the standings update.
Absolutely. So obviously, I think that everybody would be willing to say that we really need to win this U.S. Open Cup game. That's not really the hot take here, because beating the Villages, the Rowdies should expect to do that. What is the hot take is that we should beat them, not just because they are a lower division team compared to us, but at this point, we actually need the boost in confidence. After a game against Hartford where we didn't get the result that, as Neil Collins put it, the result that we probably deserved. And then this game against Oakland where we got a result that our performance also did not deserve, then we kind of need to turn it around and, get something better out of this. The 1 point is what I'm trying to say against Hartford, and the 1 point against Oakland. Those are 2 vastly different points. We need something that is going to get us back firing on all cylinders and getting us back to 3-point performances again here coming up against Miami.
Mm-hmm. Let me just say, James, the Rowdies were expected to beat Oakland, and we only tied. So I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but just keep that in the back of your head moving forward to the game that we'll get more into later. But my hot take of the week is that I strongly believe, from what I've seen so far, we talked about the Rowdies not really converting their chances and stuff like that. And basically, I'm just going to go out and say it. I believe Steven Dos Santos nor Sebastian Dalgard will reach 10 league goals this season. I think they both will contribute to the team as they always do, be consistent as always. But I feel like the way they're both set up in this new system, they like to drop back, they like to play with the midfields and the wide backs too. But most of the goals have been going to Lacava is because Dos Santos and Gonzalez have been doing work, to get more players besides them in the box. And whether it's good or bad, as long as it gives us wins and it gives us goals, I'm all for it. But from what I've seen, and also the lack of conversion from these two players, I just don't think Steven Dos Santos or Gonzalez will reach 10 goals. However, that may not be a bad thing because, like I said, you have players like Jake Lacava, Leo Fernandez, Sebastian Dalgard. These people will make up for those goals.
Well, that's definitely a hot take if we are relying on them, and then Jake Lacava, who in your previous hot take was not going to be around for the whole season.
Yeah, definitely. I guess I'm just on fire with these hot takes, man. I need to calm down before what I say is actually true, right? But moving on to the standings update. In the East, the Rowdies sit in third behind Louisville City and Pittsburgh Riverhounds. Louisville do have 11 points, and Pittsburgh have 10 points. Pittsburgh also has a game in hand, and that is really, really important to the East overall because, if they do win that game in hand, then they will go on top of the Eastern Conference. In regards to the Rowdies, we have 9 points, and that's as many as the next team. However, we do have a goal differential higher, and that is why we're above a fourth place Tulsa. Colorado Springs and San Diego Loyal each have 12 in the West. However, Colorado does have a game in hand, so they do win that game, then obviously they'll go above San Diego Loyal. However, James, the Rowdies haven't really been at their best yet. I feel like the best is still yet to come, but so far, 2 wins, 3 draws are sitting in third place. Is not the worst case scenario. We could have easily been 0-5 right now with 0 wins and 5 losses. That would definitely be a lot more terrible. However, due to the fact that we're not really playing at the level I know the Rowdies are capable of playing at, I think sitting at third place, I'm not too worried about that. How about you?
No, the only thing that I have to say about that, these draws that we had were, good enough in getting us points. But previously in the season, I said after the Rowdies drew their first game that they would win 4 in a row. And I would like to say that hot take has certainly been thrown out the window.
Yeah. I thought they were going to win 3 out of the first 5, and obviously, I was wrong too. So don't feel too down on yourself. But we just gotta move on up. The Rowdies could put some kind of win streak going on. But with all that being said, James, why don't you give us a preview of the Open Cup game and also our home game against the Miami FC?
Yeah, we do have 2 games coming up this week. It is going to be yet another time when that schedule gets crunched here. But tomorrow, Tuesday, they will play the Villages SC at home at Al Lang Stadium. So that game will happen at 7:30. The games do appear to be available on YouTube. I thought that they would be available on ESPN Plus because that's where I saw some of them. But I guess not all of them are available there. So yeah, so I did not, unfortunately, get a chance to watch the former game or the previous game that the Villages played because that one was not one of the ones on ESPN Plus, and then I only realized they were available on YouTube when I was trying to research the Villages ahead of writing up everything that we used for this episode. So that is partially on us, but I would like to say that rather than watching it online, you shouldn't even do that. You should actually go to the game because the tickets are only $15. Everybody can get a better deal for this game than what they would usually get on the weekends. I would definitely be there tomorrow, if not for the fact that I have engagement photos at the same time. So without that overlapping schedule, I would be there and taking advantage of the discount here. Anyway, enough of all that. Let's talk about anything that I could find about the Villages, which is pretty sparse online. They do not have a lot of info on their website, including a current roster. That is not available. They did not have their roster or their starting 11 when they played the previous round of the Open Cup, and they beat, I believe it was Orlando Wolves. And, the only things that I could find on their Twitter ultimately were the highlights of the game afterwards. So they did seem to find a lot of success going down the flanks. Their roster, like I said, that was not available. It seemed to be a lot of Brazilian players on the team last year, at least. So I'm assuming there was some retention and, they have the ability to get down the wing and cut it back, it seems. So those are things that we will have to watch for. But because the Rowdies are playing at a much higher level than USL League Two, and because these are all fully professional players who are, they don't have extra jobs or anything like that, I believe that they should really be capable of taking this team down and, not having to worry about them getting up and down the flanks as they did against Orlando Wolves. Now, one thing that I do want to say, Neil Collins will be out of town after the U.S. Open Cup game. He is leaving on April 9th, and he will be going over to Europe to do further coaching training for his licenses there. He will be back before our home game against Tulsa, but that does mean he will miss the game this weekend against Miami. So something to keep in mind. I do think, regardless, the Open Cup game should definitely be a win. If it's not, there's a problem, and that will need to, be dealt with, I suppose, once Neil gets back. But
James,
that is something that we should all, as fans, expect.
Quick question, James. You know how there's such thing as the magic of the FA Cup? Do you think there's something called the magic of the Open Cup, where a lower division team beats a higher division team?
We have actually seen the magic of the Open Cup in past years. I think it was Eric Winalda who coached Cal FC a couple of years ago to beat one or two professional teams. Cal FC is, I don't even think they're USL League Two. I think that they're an amateur club. And they beat maybe a USL League One or a USL Championship team, and then they played an MLS team and they beat them. And then I think they lost at that round, but that's all if my memory serves correctly. One or two of those players actually went on to play in the professional ranks after that Open Cup run. So there definitely is some magic in there. I just hope that the Villages are not the ones who find it and pull it out of the hat.
That's what I was just going to say. I was going to say, I just hope the Villages do not lead the Cinderella story in this year's U.S. Open Cup.
Yeah, I would not be too happy if they were the ones who ultimately did that. Somebody will, but let's keep it out of Florida at the very well. Let's keep it out of this round of Florida. Maybe when we end up with Orlando, with our fingers crossed, if that happens. Yeah. That will be the Open Cup game. As I said, we should still expect to win. And then we'll see some rotation based on the Rowdies having just played, having just traveled, and obviously the Villages being lower level opposition. But the bigger game this weekend is the one on Saturday, and we will be playing the Miami FC. I want to remind everybody that this is the Miami FC that we are playing, and they seem to be still putting things together at the moment. They have played 4 games, and so far they only have 4 points. Now they also have an Open Cup game on Tuesday. Don't expect them to be tired because of the Open Cup game. They will also probably be doing a lot of rotation, just like we should expect to. Miami, of course, has beat New York Red Bulls 2. That was their first game, and then their second game at home they drew Loudoun United. Their third game at home was a loss to Colorado Springs, which is a good team. So I don't want to say that should impact our perception of how Miami is or isn't. But, the first 2 games against New York Red Bulls 2 and Loudoun United, that's something that I think we should take into consideration when we're looking at this team so far. Now, we know, there are teams who often play up against the Rowdies because the Rowdies are one of the best teams in the league. So, that's something to take into consideration here. And there are definitely some good players on this roster, including former Rowdy Kyle Murphy, who had a very good scoring run last year with Memphis, and 2 Jamaican internationals, Devin Speedy Williams and Lamar Walker, who were heavily involved in Jamaica's World Cup qualifying process. These are all very good players, and others as well that we need to keep an eye out for. But yeah, we will see what kind of rivalry night we get at Al Lang this weekend, Leo. I mean, what do you think about this? It's something that could be burgeoning with the fan base.
Yeah, no, and we've seen this last season too. Whenever the Miami FC came into town, it was a game not like any other opponent the Rowdies may face. We've seen that these are 2 teams from the same state, both looking to have bragging rights. I feel like if you're the Miami FC, you're always going to be the underdog coming to this game, mainly because the soccer team Miami that everyone really cares about is in MLS, and you're just kind of that second tier team, and you play at a college stadium too. So I feel like it's more meaningful for them if they win it. However, if you're the Rowdies, you just bully them, and you get in their heads saying you're not even the main team where you come from. So that's the kind of stuff I noticed last season, and I hope that continues this season too. And it's always fun to have a rivalry kind of match, when you have Tampa Bay Rowdies against the Miami FC. I just hope we hear that a lot of trash talk, a lot of boos to the opposing teams whenever they touch the ball. I feel like it'll make for a great rivalry night of soccer.
Yeah, and hopefully we can, also as fans get in their heads. I would like to
Exactly.
encourage everybody to get there to this game against Miami. Now, I will be able to attend this one. Thank the Lord, there are no things in the way after missing not only this game that we have in the Open Cup on Tuesday, but also the last home game that we had because I was getting ready over in Orlando for the U.S. men's national team game. But yeah, I would like to see everybody get out there and, like I said, just put the Miami FC players off of their game and make sure that we help the Rowdies as much as we can as fans get to victory. And yeah. The last thing I think, Leo, we have introduced this. We just want to see what lineups we want to see in these games, or because we have two games, maybe we don't go through the whole lineup. Let's just note some changes that we would like to see for these two games coming up.
Yeah, in regards to the Open Cup match against the Villages, I do want to see Jake Arman finally get his first debut. His first starting in the lineup for the Rowdies. I also would like to see Deion Harris come in and Juan Tejada as well. I feel like Juan Tejada is playing at least that game I went to. He really lit up the stadium against. I'm forgetting who the team was. However, I like seeing Deion Harris play too. So I feel like those three players, I hope they come in and showcase what they have and show to Neo, that they belong in the starting lineup. And in regards to the Miami FC, I want to go back to the strong lineup that we've seen all season, similar to the lineup against Oakland Roots. However, James, as good as Jan Ecker was, I feel like I would take him out that lineup and put in Steven Dos Santos instead. For Jan Eckra in that front three. I feel like those three do have some kind of connection going on. I don't really want to see anything to mess that up. So that's what I want to see. What about you, James? What do you hope to see in regards to lineup changes, if there's any, for both these games?
Sure. So, yeah, I would like to see Jake Arman get the start, something that you have already talked about. But in addition to Jake Arman getting the start, what I would like to see is something that this is what I predicted for the starting lineup when we talked about that in our final preseason episode. But I said that I would like to see Leo Fernandez actually move up and play in the attack again. So, maybe we see Steven Dos Santos in the middle and we see Sebastian Guenzati on the right. They'll switch, obviously, and Leo Fernandez on the left, and he'll switch like I am talking about with Sebastian Guenzati. That would mean that Jake Arman could play as the left wing back and he can get up and down the wing. So that is the kind of change that I would like to see in at least one of these games. Get some more attack-minded Leo Fernandez. Jake Arman needs minutes. Let's see that happen.
Mm-hmm. And quickly before we get to our predictions, one thing I forgot to mention is I hope Raiko Rosarina gets his chance and goal, hopefully in the Open Cup game.
Big time.
He was my favorite to lead the race for the starting goalkeeper. Obviously, he didn't win it. CJ Cochran, I'm happy that he's proved me wrong. But I do want to see Raiko get his chance in goal. So with all that being said, James, let's do our predictions for both these games. I'll take the first prediction for the Open Cup game, and then you take the first one for the Miami FC. So for the Open Cup game, I'm going to predict a 3-1 win for the Rowdies.
All right. Well, if you are taking the 3-1, I will go ahead and pull a Mitch Loster here and say 4-1 to the lads.
4-1. I like that prediction. I like that special shout out to Mitch Loster. For the Miami FC game, I know what I want, but James, go ahead and tell me your prediction.
All right, so I do predict that we will win this game. I think that we are going to bounce off of a good result against the Villages and actually start to pick up our form here. And I am going to say that we beat Miami 2-0 with at least one goal by Sebastian Guenzati, possibly actually 2 goals by Sebastian Guenzati.
James, I may receive some stick for this, and I really hope I'm wrong, but I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw for this game. I think because it's a rivalry. Draw. Yeah, I do think because it's a rivalry match. You don't really know what to expect. But I do, however, expect Seba Gonzalez to get a goal this weekend, though. However, I will go for a 2-2 draw.
Well, a draw would not be it wouldn't be welcome, but it would certainly not be too surprising the way
Yeah.
that our games with Miami have gone in the past.
Definitely, yeah. And with all that being said, we can move on to our one more thing segment before we let everybody out of here. As always, listeners, liking and subscribing is free. But if you feel like you need some new clothes, some new T-shirts, some new hoodies, you can always support this podcast by heading over to shop.rblrsports.com and check out all the designs our very own producer Eureka Wheeler has produced, because I checked out the website myself. I love the t-shirts are coming out, the hoodies are out, and I feel like you yourself will also like it as well. There will be a link in the description wherever you listen to this podcast to visit our shop site. Make sure to use the promo code COYR for 10% off your purchase. Who does not love 10% off the entire purchase? I know I do. If you don't, then pay the full price. That's on you. But yeah, remember to head to shop.rblrsports.com. And also, for our people that follow us on Twitter, interact with us on social media, if you've seen the Rowdies draw for the World Cup on Friday, I think you also agree with me that we got a very, very easy group. What do you say, James?
Yeah, well, I like our chances definitely against Djibouti and Bahamas. If you look at the Bahamas team, there aren't even too many of their players in the USL Championship level. But no, I just want to thank everybody who was involved with our little Twitter April Fool's joke. It was pretty funny. I thought Eureka did a good job picking teams for the Rowdies to beat. We definitely have a chance to get out of that group if it ever materializes. But in serious terms, though, there was, in addition to April Fool's on Friday, a World Cup draw that the U.S. and Mexico were involved in. So the U.S. got into Group B with England, Iran, and the winner of a European playoff that was between Wales, Scotland, and Ukraine, ultimately. And then, Leo, how did Mexico do?
Yeah, Mexico. I don't know how I feel about this draw, but Mexico were put in Group C with Argentina, Poland, and Saudi Arabia. And James, some analysts and pundits were calling it perhaps a group of death of the tournament, along with Group H. So quickly, James, I hope we get to do an episode where we go more in depth with the World Cup drawing and World Cup predictions. But quickly, James, your thoughts on the U.S.'s group heading into the World Cup.
Honestly, I think for the U.S., we are one of the favorites to get out of the group, whether that is up against Wales, Scotland, or Ukraine. And that hurts me as someone who also would like to see Scotland do well. I am a supporter of the Scottish national team. Additionally, with my family background and growing up with my dad, pulling for them all along. But the U.S. should definitely be able to get out of the group alongside England. I think that England are one of the best teams in the world right now. So us getting a tie off of them like we did in the 2010 World Cup group stage, I'm not sure how realistic that is, but with our young stars, it's something that we can always hope for, at least. And we'll see how it goes. It's that old any given Sunday, I suppose, and maybe the US will be any given team.
Yeah, I would say a tie would be possible if Robert Green was still in goal, but unfortunately he is no longer there. And also that game will be played after Thanksgiving on Black Friday. So if you're off on Thanksgiving week, make sure to watch the U.S. against England. I'm pretty sure it'll be a great game. My quick thoughts on Mexico, I feel like this Mexico team is not really the same as we've seen in previous World Cup and also in previous years. I do think they're kind of weak right now with them being put against the top two ranked players in the Ballon d'Or rankings with Lionel Messi with Argentina and Robert Lewandowski with Poland. It was kind of harsh, but you know what? If I'm a Mexico fan, we'll take it. We'll fight to earn our place in the next round, and I can't wait for the World Cup to come around. But with all that being said, listeners, I just want to again, thank you for your time to listen to this podcast and support this podcast. You can also support this podcast by following us on social media on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We're at RBLR Sports. If you want to interact with James or not, you could follow me on Twitter. I'm Leo Santos _. James, where can these people find you?
I am at RBLR James K. And additionally, you can get at both of us as well as all the RBLR sports people, including our producer Eureka, by using the hashtag AskRBLR. So please do that. And also please like and subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, Apple and Google Podcasts. And you can get to us at YouTube or on YouTube and all other major podcast platforms. As always, with 2 games coming up this week, come on, you Rowdies.
Let's go. Come on, you Rowdies.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.